reigns of Terraventure, and more importantly, we will destroy the Power Rangers!
I have no words. Are you sure you want me to continue content about this series? Okay. Well, since you guys have been wanting to know who this guy is and probably had not been staying posted on who the main villain was for my version and take on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. This is the main villain for the 2014 reboot series of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, which was a part of my fanfiction universe of Power Rangers, better known as the Marshverse. Basically, my personal take on PRLG, that is. His name is Lord Metarex. He is a customed, modified version of a past monster from Power Rangers Time Force. In this case, Mr. Mecantu, even though his body was from the exact same episode of Time Force, that being Undercover Rangers, and the Time Ranger episode that featured said character's costume. Earlier, based on some concept art I made of him, which sadly I don't have anymore, I originally had Metarex to sport a horn on his forehead, reminiscent to the orgs from Power Rangers Wild Force, like Master Org, Toxica, Gindrax, and such. Even their org generals and monsters. But Metarex was supposed to be my version of Ranger villains like Rancic, Master Org, and Emperor Grum thrown together, but sadly, that didn't fully end up happening. He pretty much was supposed to be also akin to Lord Zed from Mighty Morphin, if darker and intimidating like Zed in his debut back in The Mutiny. And when it comes to Serpentera, we'll get to that. Imagine if he was Lord Zed, if he was reborn many years after Countdown to Destruction, or a Lord Zed from a much alternate timeline of a possible multiverse in the Power Rangers universe, if Zed was a dark edgelord of sorts, or had a long-lost father or uncle or something. I don't know. I even originally concepted Metarex to be modeled after Rita and Rito's father, Master Vile, from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at one point, but it never went into fruition. Despite the black aesthetic like Rancic, Mesogog, and Lothar, and other male villains with black to their villainous costumes, I originally wanted to have somewhat the same character traits of those other male villains from Power Rangers for Lord Metarex's character, but that too, once I started filming the first movie, never ended up happening, as production on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2014 was fast-tracked and rushed into production for 6 months, between September 2013 to March 2014, as I was, at the time of the first movie's work and near release, was dealing with trolls and online harassers somewhere in the dark corners of the Ranger fandom, who wanted to see me fail at making such a fan film where I had no budget, no real cast or crew involvement, no sets or costumes, no real studio, etc., etc. Instead, for these paper, cardboard cutout puppets. You get the deal. To the point that kind of bullying and harassment had me to make the film the way I did, and, well, cost me to barely do fan films anymore. Reason I rushed to production on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2014 was because the pressure of the trolling and harassment I faced during this time. Because, especially at the time of this video anyway, and based on when I originally did this video back in 2013, because there were some fans who were very against a nobody like me to make a fan film of Power Rangers that was in a very different medium compared to most, and was very against a Lost Galaxy one that I made where I made puppets made of mount board and such instead of actually getting real living people, which there weren't any near me that cared to be a part of it doing the project with me. While though there have been some that had interest in helping but wasn't sure if they would come and help, since I had, again, no budget, sets, costumes, crew, etc. The project would be different than what most Power Ranger fan films were happening or were going to happen at the time. One of them being, of course, being that MMPR fan film. Although, yes, most fan-made projects have to require their own funding or crowdfunding from others, but I decided not to fund my project as I made these projects as more of a hobby rather than something I would do if it were to be a job. Of course, why would and or how movies and other types of productions get made anyway? Money. Part of this is reasonable as well. When it comes to ever making my fan films of Power Rangers, Lost Galaxy in particular, I didn't want to get into any kind of legal issues with Saban, the previous 2-time owner of Power Rangers, to sue the living shit out of me for copyright for over a fan-made movie. But hey, look at that Power/Ranger short film. When that came out, it indeed was an overnight but ultra-violent and adult viral sensation, but Saban in fact sued that film and its creator, but would then re-upload it to YouTube again under another name like Power Rangers Unauthorized. Despite that, I didn't want it to be affected. Well, I'm a small person, not looking to rip them off for money or anything over their IP, so I didn't think Saban would want to waste all their energy, money, and time on to sue a smaller person who's not really making money on something like me for my fan-made stuff because, well, I'm not a professional filmmaker at all or whatnot. Tell it to a troll I heard on Ranger Board sarcastically say I need to be pled guilty for 90 years for making an illegitimate PRLG movie. Stupid. Being the lazy pest of a Ranger fan I was at the time, and still, I made it personal to make the film regardless of the harassment I had been getting from trolls on YouTube and from what I heard from those on Ranger Board in their fan film discussion thread. And they say I'm a troll and they don't even know a lot about me other than all that delusional crap I had posted over the last decade in the past when I was in my late teens, early 20s. Combining elements of Lord Zed, Rancic, Master Org, Master Vile, King Mondo, actually, Scratch Mondo, Dark Spectre, a little Mesogog, a little into this guy, I nearly almost made, and I mean almost, the ultimate boss villain for the Marshverse equivalent of the Galaxy Rangers for this universe of films. But that would, again, be considered fan fiction fodder, which it was. Now, unlike stuff I said in the original video, which was me just stammering and stuttering, didn't know what to say because I was worried about, again, trolls harassing me and stuff in the past. But there are some things I wanted to say in the original version of this back in 2013 that I can now bring up now in 2020. But this part here is all unscripted. I'm just only bringing up stuff that I said scripted for those who didn't really know that the original video of this actually exists, but unlisted. When I originally worked on my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film for 2014, back in its pre-production stage in early 2013, back in the time when I started this channel 8 years ago at the time of this video's recording anyway, I originally was going to have, there was a suggestion from a fan that I knew from a long time ago who sadly I had never heard of from in a long time after his comment suggestion, but he was probably a troll the whole time or so, where he originally wanted to consider for my fan film reboot of Lost Galaxy to have a villain that didn't even make his way into Power Rangers. In this case, Captain Gregory, the main villain from the Gingaman vs. Mega Ranger movie. But due to that point, knowing to the fact Captain Gregory, all he was just an alternate version of Captain Mutiny. If Captain Mutiny had a great-grandfather that no one has never heard of in the Lost Galaxy, even though, again, he was supposed to happen, I would have liked it if Gregory was in Lost Galaxy's extended lore or something. Maybe in the Boom Studio comics he would make an appearance, but who knows. But when it came to a main boss villain for a reboot movie, okay, here's the difference about how I'm terming reboots. Basically, sometimes when you reboot a franchise, especially in that day and age over the last decade of reboots and stuff that we had over in Hollywood, sometimes when you reboot a franchise, you usually go back to the very beginning and retell the same story as before, but not as well. But that would mostly be the term of a remake, actually, telling the same story and stuff. Reboot sometimes, depending on how you actually do a reboot, whether it should be continuous from the last story or so in a rebooted form. Reboot would be if you were to do a continuous reboot, you would continue on where the original series left off and probably add on some new stuff that was never in the original series before, but continuing on from the last iteration. But the reboot terming I'm going for is a hard reboot where I just wanted to stay away from the last continuity and start everything completely fresh and new, where there was stuff that was never in the original that I would like to do in the next from an alternate continuity in the form of a reboot. But even though sometimes the meaning and termings of rebooting franchises can be difficult sometimes. But when it came to the main male villain of Lost Galaxy for the Marshverse at the time, and knowing to the fact, the reason I did this is because, you know, due to my painstaking frustrations with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, The Rise of Shrekina, I wanted to do a new film where I would have to, you know, take a break from said project, and decided to go for a new villain to kick off what could be this universe of films, which ended up done pretty poorly. See, the thing was with that Captain Gregory villain based on a fan by the name of Aussie Utaku, I think his name was, back when I originally started this channel and when I did a few videos and saw one of his comments in one of my older videos, that he wanted, if I wanted to do the fan film, I would, you know, for a main villain, if suggesting a main villain, I would go for the main villain from the Gingaman vs. Mega Ranger movie for my Lost Galaxy fan film reboot. But the thing was, Gingaman vs. Mega Ranger is only a 50-minute movie or so. It wasn't even possible enough to have footage of him lasting, and he was only a limited character. And of course, he would have never made it in Lost Galaxy because I don't think the season really needed him in the series. But after all, why do you think we have Captain Mutiny? Although, Captain Mutiny... let me cut to the chase with that. See, Captain Mutiny, back in the last half of Lost Galaxy, taking a break from Shrekina for a bit. You see, in the episodes after Caron's opening debut as the Pink Ranger after Kendrick's death, at the end of Power of Pink and before the Protect the Quasar Saber and Caron's full redemption episode, Captain Mutiny's time in the season was very, very short. I understand that he was in Gingaman, the real main villain, but the thing was, Captain Mutiny wasn't as compelling as Shrekina, or Scorpius for that matter, or Deviant in other words. But Captain Mutiny, he was... I hate to say, guys, but his army and forces at the last half of Lost Galaxy before the finale was forgettable. After all, I've been a fan of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy for 20 years now, plus years actually as of 2020 at the time of this re-recording of an old video with new stuff and whatnot. But the thing is, Captain Mutiny was not a compelling villain either way, and I would say his counterpart Captain Zahab and Gingaman could fare no boring or worse because, well, I guess I just didn't really care. So Lord Metarex, for my first fan film of reboot of starting off what is the Marshverse of Power Rangers as we know it, basically he's supposed to act as the Captain Mutiny of the series if Captain Mutiny was to start off Lost Galaxy, much like how we had the Space Pirates Ball Band in the beginning and from start to finish of Seiju Sentai Gingaman. But see, the thing is that using Captain Gregory wouldn't work because even though, yeah, I like Gregory's design, but you see, with the aesthetic, I'm going for a fan film reboot of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy because at that time I was insecurely jealous over a particular Power Rangers fan film that was trying to be like the Dark Knight of Power Rangers fan films, where I was going to go for a much more grounded and darker approach with PRLG, than opposed to the darker undertones we had in Lost Galaxy itself, like, oh, the death of a Power Ranger, the Magna Defender's sacrifice, and several other dark stuff that happened in Lost Galaxy. Oh, and also that time when Leo yelled out for Mike when Mike fell into the crevice of Miranoi back in the first episode. But my point stands. The thing is, I wanted to make him like, you know, because basically I wanted to make the first movie a bit like Gingaman, but more Americanized, but it could still be like the Lost Galaxy we knew, but with new characters. And that was something that those people on Ranger Board kind of didn't really like because they hoped that if they were hearing that I was doing a fan film reboot of sorts of Lost Galaxy, they was hoping that it would have the original characters of Leo, Damon, Kai, Kendricks, Maya, etc. again, but this time with a completely new villain. If the fan film reboot, if it was a continuous reboot with, you know, outside of the TV show, but continued from where the show was 15 years later for 2014, then Lord Metarex and his Zeon Empire would attack Miranoi and the Galaxy Rangers. But again, that would be pissing and crapping on continuity where it was established in the TV series. So basically, this kind of stuff needs to stand out on its own from Prime Power Rangers continuity. Not only that, when I even did the first fan film, okay, let's talk about my fan film about Power Rangers Lost Galaxy 2014, even though basically I'm not impressed with what I had done years after I had done this movie or older videos related to this film and whatnot. Lord Metarex is the leader of the Xeon Empire and ruler of the Dark Galaxy, similar to the Lost Galaxy led by ruled by Captain Mutiny in the main series of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. The thing is with Lord Metarex though, his motivation, like I said back in the Scorpius videos at the end when I said that when I would come back and do this again and re-record and add some stuff I never said in the original version of this said thing, I have to bring up some points that, you see, when I did the first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film in 2014, I guess I was trying to copy and paste what was done in Gingaman with Captain Zahab, aka Captain Mutiny's crew, in terms of his villain generals with Villamax, Trecheron, Barbarex, and Hexiba being all in the same alliance as Mutiny and Gingaman. But see, Metarex only had Villamax, Trecheron, and Furio. I didn't have like an equivalent to Hexiba, which I originally wanted to, by the form of Mortalia, which is basically Metal Alice from Power Rangers Megaforce under a different name, basically. Let that sink in. But when I did do it, though, I was supposed to do the film in the way of Gingaman while still being more like how Lost Galaxy is here in America, with Terra Venture and whatnot. Because, now, look, the things that Lost Galaxy did on the show over 20 years ago was great and all, but when I did the film, well, at the time leading up to the 15th anniversary, but knowing 15th anniversary celebrations of any franchise is terrible. Look at Sonic 06. But the thing is, with this film, Metarex's plan was basically copying the overall overarching character plot that was from Gingaman's villains about a resurrection of a demon beast or any kind of ultimate weapon of destruction that would destroy the Rangers. In this case, when I did the first movie, and even when I was originally doing the film, and back when I was lacking any money to afford any of the toys of old Megazords and whatnot, I originally was supposed to get a toy of Serpentera if I could have afforded him in time for the first movie. But unfortunately, since I was lacking money to afford a Serpentera toy in time for the first movie, any scenes revolving Serpentera, but unfortunately was sadly unfilmed, would end up getting cut at the end. Instead of making references of if Metarex was to revive Serpentera, like how those Beetleborg lookalikes in Power Rangers Wild Force and Forever Red was going to do. But that was the thing, what I was trying to do in the first movie. And see, the thing was with Lord Metarex as a villain, like I said, like I wanted to, vent about after when I did my re-recordings of the Scorpius videos last time. Recall that last time back in the Scorpius videos, I said Metarex was a not really impressive edgelord-ass villain because I really should have never made him an edgelord villain. If I were to stick with a villain that looked like that was closer to the aesthetics of Gingaman and Lost Galaxy, Captain Gregory should have been that villain. But I decided to do this dark edgelord villain of evil, intergalactic evil, to take over and instead of going with the Gregory costume, or reuse Captain Mutiny again if that was an option. But I didn't want to do any of that because being the lazy ranger runt that I was, being the lazy fan runt that I was, and still I just didn't want to use Captain Gregory or anyone that's akin to Lost Galaxy's aesthetics or Gingaman's. Adding Serpentera to the story just confuses question to what I was doing when I did this movie. Metarex's motivations never made any sense, and I think looking back on it made no sense at all. I get that part of me wanted to emulate some things that was done in Forever Red to probably undo something that Amit Baumick did with Forever Red and Power Rangers Wild Force with the Serpentera and the Beetleborg thing, and I wanted to kind of undo that with Lost Galaxy in a separate continuity only, because I needed to come up with, see, the reason why was because, again, with me fast tracking production on the first movie, I was under a lot of pressure to try to get a movie done before 2014 was up. If I didn't do the film by 2014, then those people on Ranger Board would call me officially a complete troll for making such a somewhat hoax of a film, like someone called out Rise of Trakina being a hoax of a film. And that's one of the reasons why he turned in a really crappy film that kicked off a really horrible series of movies. Sure, yeah, the films I've been doing and still are pretty rocky with its rocky start of a would-be trilogy. That's one of the reasons why Lord Metarex just didn't work as a villain. His motivations in terms of his army of evil, was also poorly underdeveloped as well. See, the thing was, I was just copying and pasting, stuff that was from the first couple of episodes of Ginga Man with the villains, especially like the way how people saw how I did Villamax in the first movie. If you've seen my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film, you know what I was talking about. I think some stuff for from Ginga Man's early episodes that fully never made it to Lost Galaxy because, well, Lost Galaxy had a much more unique storyline as opposed, while still retaining some stuff that was from Ginga Man, even though some things that Ginga Man did, of course, would not work for Lost Galaxy because due to the fact Lost Galaxy is a space colony themed season and Ginga Man is a nature Earth-based season. So it wouldn't really work to have, like, the Lights of Orion being on Terra Venture again, but not in a good way. And also Metarex being, like, again, Mutiny's crew and the Sentai footage, where they all wanted the Quasar Sabers, the Trans Daggers, and the Lights of Orion and all. But that was not going to work for the best. I don't know what I was thinking with the guy, because, like, Metarex, basically, the name of Metarex came from, of course, for anyone who's a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, speaking of which, Metarex's name for my OC character came from, yes, you guessed it, the Metarex army led by Metarex himself from the third and final season of Sonic X. But basically, if Metarex was a Power Rangers villain, and if he was like a hodgepodge of Darth Vader from Star Wars or sorts, and Metarex from Sonic X. And basically, you can tell that this film, the first film of my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film series of the Marshverse, was going to be, of course, generic bad fan fiction for the worst. And it just clearly goes to show I really made an awful fan film. And basically, the reason why I made a bad fan film for the 15th anniversary and for Lost Galaxy in general under my namesake and stuff is because the reason why I made Metarex is because I was under a lot of tumult with, again, the online harassment and trolls. And that's why I'm bringing this up in the Morphin Grid case study archive of this. Because the reason why the fan film series of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy I've been doing for nearly a decade now was so poorly done is because, again, due to my own shortcomings and my own incompetence and my own failures over a fan film that people called out a hoax on Ranger Board and stuff, which I actually did do and stuff. And when I shut that film down and did this movie, I had to think of some film quick for the 15th anniversary, because knowing the fact that the time when Power Rangers was in its underwhelming hoax and mockery of a 20th anniversary celebration of the franchise, I had to do a film based on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy to accommodate its 15th anniversary in 2014 at the time of Super Megaforce. And you know how that didn't go out. Because basically, when I came up with this movie, I was under a lot of pressure because of the harassment and trolling that I had to deal with some fans out there. Because they thought what I was doing, of course, was bullshit. And that's why I made villains like Lord Metarex and did the 2014 film the way I did. So that's why with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Wrath of Trakina going forward, let's just pretend my 2014 film didn't exist, and Wrath of Trakina, although retaining continuity from this movie, should make any events from the first movie, that being this, feel very redundant, or any associations about the Metarex character. And recall last time back in my Scorpius videos, last time at the end, I did mention a theory that I had when I did my first movie, so I can set up what was, if it ever was a success, a sequel. I originally was considering about this because due to my own personal obsessive tendencies of wanting to have Trakina back in a fan film of Power Rangers due to my own personal distaste about the Trakina's Revenge from Lightspeed Rescue 20 years ago prior, is that I was hoping that when I did the first movie, I was going to have this as a in-movie theory if Trakina was Lord Metarex the whole time, setting up a sequel with her showing up for the first time ever in a fan film, which, of course, being a puppet and all. But knowing to the fact, I don't think that would really make any sense because, well, basically, the reason I kind of did it was because knowing how unpleased I was with my own failures on Rise of Trakina, which was a fan film that never was going to happen 10 years ago at this time, because we're now 2020, 10 years after I even did Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Rise of Trakina and originally was going to make it a fan film that was going to be made, but never was to be released, sadly, because of a lot of setbacks and whatnot. So the theory goes, even though when I mentioned a little small tidbit about Trakina basically taking her Prime Universe element of her being the daughter of Scorpius thing in the original version of the post-credits ending of the first movie, until I redubbed it for the extended version of this, I kinda thought, what if Trakina was Lord Metarex the whole first movie, just to set up an end joke, and I don't know. Because, like, the thing was, I was just really upset over how Rise of Trakina didn't make it and didn't get finished on time in its original intended release. And that's why I did this movie, created Lord Metarex for the generic sake of it, because I was utterly bored, in which I was out of my mind at the time. And not only that, again, the pressure of the harassment and trolling I've faced. I'm not asking for any sympathy or empathy from others about what I had gone through in the beginning of my time in the Power Rangers fandom when doing such a fan film project like this. I just hope a lot of you understand what I had gone through, and the reason why I'm hardly ever doing content about this stuff ever again. Besides probably going back doing content about the TV series and whatnot again. But you see, but back to Serpentera though, it wouldn't really make sense to have Serpentera come around to Terra Venture and try to wreck the entire colony and shatter all of its domes. That's what Titanosaur and Grunshore was for when Captain Mutiny was around in the main universe. But again, these fan films of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, like I said time and time again, is why I have to debunk this for the first time for new viewers who have never seen my content before. Especially older content I've done before they even subscribe to this channel. That the fan films of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy I'm doing is of a separate universe, separate from the main timeline of events that happens and who are as transpired within the main universe of Power Rangers with each season of the television show and all of the history of Power Rangers. So therefore, anything I do in these fan films should not even contradict whatever the TV show was doing or is currently doing at this time. Otherwise, then fans will be like, is this even part of canon? Of course, hell no, it is not part of canon. Because whatever I'm doing in fan fiction is whatever I think of. But of course, fan fiction is, well, not great at all. But Serpentera, having Serpentera being resurrected, didn't I not watch Forever Red and saw what Cole did with his Wild Force Rider, destroying that poorly CGI Serpentera, with General Vengeance, which was basically Shadowborg from Beetleborgs, get destroyed by Cole's toyetic looking, bird looking motorcycle that was only sold just to sell a toy? Yeah, well, you see, here's the thing. If Serpentera was to exist in my fanfiction universe of Power Rangers, even though everything was more about me being in my, elitist gatekeeping fanboyism of Lost Galaxy with this universe anyway, then I wouldn't really be making references to other seasons and acting like the version of Lost Galaxy I'm doing is like Lost Galaxy is the only team of Power Rangers in my personal fanfiction world because of how, well, of a flamboyant gatekeeping fanboy I am about those Rangers, which I think needs to fucking stop. Because basically, I'm at the point where I'm kind of getting a little sick of Lost Galaxy at this point for me personally. I'm not saying it for anyone who still loves Lost Galaxy. I'm saying this personally to, in terms of me and my fanboy and my fanism of the season and that team. You can still enjoy Power Rangers Lost Galaxy for your own personal pleasures and other stuff and as a fan, but personally for me, I just feel like I kind of wrecked Lost Galaxy in a way for myself, and especially in the terms of me doing the fan films. But the thing was, having Serpentera in the series of these films would never make sense. Because I needed an equivalent to Titanosaur, like, aka Datanix and Gingaman, the demon beast that they had in the Sentai footage, because I was copying and pasting stuff because I was running out of time, to get the film out. But see, that was the thing. And see, having Lord Metarex wanting to resurrect Serpentera, knowing he should have, I couldn't think of some other equivalent to Titanosaur or Grunshore, aka Datanix and Gingaman, because I was copying stuff from Gingaman's source and not Lost Galaxy's source with the villains for Lord Metarex. But I was trying to think of something that could work at some capacity one way or another, but I just didn't know what exactly. I mean, sure, I was like, what would I use for Lord Metarex's ultimate destruction for my poorly made 15th anniversary fan film reboot? I mean, was I going to use what? Devastator from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, or Triptychon, or something? But yeah, sure, you can have your Triptychons and Unicrons and Death Stars, but the villain of my fan film was supposed to reuse a giant flaming dragon that belonged to Lord Zed, and then later a Beetleborg costume reject. That was the idea, and it didn't execute very well. As for Lord Metarex as a villain, okay, here's the thing. I think this Dark Edgelord villain of mine, exclusive for the series, is not compelling as who I thought he would. Because making him the way I would be just didn't compel well. Of all the times I wanted to make him like the Lord Zed of my fan series, or the Master Org of my fan series, or hell, Venjix in his final form in RPM, with him in his black and gold Viking looking form in the final few episodes of RPM. Maybe I could have made Metarex like him, but that didn't pan out very well. Finally, and most off about Metarex, basically, for all things considered and said, for those who didn't know, Lord Metarex, I kind of ripped him off a particular Star Wars character from a then recent at the time Star Wars video game. And if you can tell based on his head sculpt of the puppet scene and most scenes he's featured, Metarex's head is the same as, yes, Darth Malgus from Star Wars The Old Republic. I said to myself when I even made the film and put the film together and whatnot, I said to myself, you know what, Lucasfilm, even if you're under Disney's qualms with the new Star Wars trilogy and whatnot, even if George Lucas doesn't have Star Wars anymore, sue me! Because basically, I ripped off a Star Wars character and made him partly a part Power Rangers villain, part whatever, and basically all I did with Metarex was take parts of Darth Malgus, part villains of Power Rangers with black to their costumes and whatever. And that's how I made this amalgamation of a bad Dark Edgelord villain of Metarex. So basically, I realized most of my OC characters in my Power Rangers fan series kind of, hate to say, even for the Rangers I've done in the series, sucks. The reason why I have to use my OC characters for this, because I just felt that the fear of using characters we know, Trakina and Deviant and them notwithstanding, is because I was afraid what fans of those characters would think of how I feel if I did Leo, Kendricks, and Trakina and those characters in a certain manner under me, Anthony Mars Jr., a Power Rangers fan, would do if I were to do those characters in the way I don't think fans would like. And that's why I did the films the way I certainly did. But not only that, though, I also had to take some elements and influence to how he was in Gigaman and Lost Galaxy in terms of his relation with the Magna Defender and his rivalry. You see, in Gigaman, Zahab killed Bull Black and his brother Krantz, while in Lost Galaxy, Scorpius killed Magna Defender's son Zika and destroyed his planet, seeking revenge, and also in terms of the Lights of Orion. In the fan film universe of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, Lord Metarex killed Zika, but in my version, Zika and Magna Defender are actually brothers instead of father and son, like in the main universe of Power Rangers, where Metarex would be the one that killed Magna Defender's, whoever, son, sibling, whatever. And I just couldn't even tell whether if I would have Zika in the film or not. Because again, I was under a lot of pressure, and that's why the first movie was a failure, but yet I still did a sequel nevertheless, regardless of the failures, and also my bad upbringing in the fandom. There really isn't much to say about Lord Metarex, but all I can say is, he just was a poorly developed villain, and I just wish I could have made him a little better when I first made him, could have made him more compelling, instead of him being a poor Darth Vader, Darth Malgus, or whatever knockoff from Star Wars, but for Power Rangers. And I realize I should have made Lord Metarex look similar instead of, and also being a little too generic and being like how this is the kind of fan fiction of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, some 15-year-old who didn't even watch Lost Galaxy growing up, probably as a kid, or probably has no memory of ever watching that, would do, and post that horrible PRLG fanfic like this on fanfiction.net or something. And that's the kind of fan I was when I did this movie. But to cut things short, though, Lord Metarex sucks as a villain, and even though I wish I could have made him a little better as a villain, him and his Zeon Empire, which is just nothing but just Metarex wanting to take down the Rangers just for the sake of being a poorly developed Dark Edgelord villain, think he's powerful than any other villain that we had in the main universe, including RPM and Dino Charge's Dimensions notwithstanding. But that's the thing that I could have done with him to make him a much more compelling villain instead of what I ended up giving him at the end, due to, shortcomings with the production of this movie, setting up a new universe of film. Now with Lord Metarex out of the picture, even though there really isn't much to say about the OC guy, my OC main villain of the first movie, setting up this trilogy of films poorly in a Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Star Wars prequels kind of thing. Well, since we covered Lord Metarex, even though I had to cut things a little short though, because there really isn't much to say about him, because I just had to come out and finally say this in a redux of an older video, Metarex sucks as a villain, because he just didn't work out. Now we're on to now that with Metarex and other characters covered for the featurettes, now we're finally on to our final character for the fan film featurettes of the Morphin Grid case studies of my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film series. And this has been a long one, because it's going to be a while once again to get that video out. So with Metarex covered, now we're down to our final Ranger to cover for this featurette, and I'm done with this so I can re-record old videos and whatnot. I hope you guys understand my pains with Lord Metarex. He just didn't work as a character nevertheless. So, come back next time, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody, as I talk about my final Ranger of the fan film series. That is, of course, my Marchverse equivalent to the Pink Ranger. And of that, one that was not as good as Kendrick's in the main universe, or Corone for that matter, but this is a Pink Ranger that I had created since 10 years ago to be part of the fan series when my fanfiction series was not going any further. But come back next time when I talk about the Pink Ranger of the Marchverse that started off this universe with Gwen McQueen, the Pink Galaxy Ranger of the Marchverse.